Hi there. So I recently discovered the YouTuber, oh god, I've been looking at his shit all day anyways, Josh, Sundquist. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. Anyways, and he is a one-legged man. Sorry, I don't know why it's so bright. It's, like, not that bright in my apartment. Anyways, um, and I've been watching a few of his videos about, how he's an amputee and whatnot, and in the comments and in his shit stuff, like shit people say to amputees kind of videos and stuff like that, I'm seeing kind of some interesting reactions and responses to someone having one leg, and one of them though that kind of is like, okay, is on his video Miss America Made Fun of Me. I'll put the link for that video in the description. Sorry. But anyways, on that video, I saw a comment that said, so basically, sorry, yeah, Miss America made fun of me. She made fun of him for something he said completely about dating, like completely unrelated to his amputation. So, and she made fun of, like, that's just, yeah, he said something kind of whatever, and then Miss America made fun of him, like, that's normal social whatever. Um, so, thought nothing of it other than, like, this guy just happens to have one leg, and he's talking about an embarrassing experience, like, no big deal. But then someone commented, and then you stood up to leave, and she saw you only had one leg. Felt like a huge, and I quote here, douchey popsicle. Bam. First of all, douchey popsicle. But I find that really stupid, and I actually replied to her, because I find that really stupid, because, like, it's not really, like, why should like, I have a friend who has a physical disability. She has issues with her legs, and she has to walk with a walker, and she has these braces on her legs, too. But she hates it when people treat her differently because she has a physical disability. She's like, I'm a normal person, like, just because my legs are broken doesn't mean you have to treat me any differently. So, like, it's kind of annoying that, like, people have that mentality that if you have a physical disability, you have to act like they're made of glass or some shit like that. And then that kind of got me thinking about, well, also because I've been watching his videos, kind of thinking about all different disabilities, and especially I kind of want to make a video about the shit people say to amputees, because lately, I've been having a lot of issues with my mental health, especially with my anxiety disorder. It is starting to become a really big issue, and it's getting in the way of me getting a summer job, because I'll get too much anxiety about interviews and applications to the point where I've had panic attacks, and then my anxiety has completely botched it. That I am going to be going through a program and for that, as well as applying for disability. Now, since I don't have a physical disability, it's a mental disability, a lot of people kind of have a different reaction to that. They think, it's like, oh, you don't deserve disability, even though, as I demonstrated, it is disabling me from living a normal life, and it's causing financial issues. It's giving me money and giving me a steady income, which is something that, my mental illnesses can get in the way of, because I've had a lot of issues in workplaces, and I've gotten written up for problems, problems and issues and whatnot, because of that were directly related to my mental illnesses. So you can see, like, I do deserve, like, that's what disability payments are for, is if you have a mental or physical disability that gets in the way of you earning money, the government will help you out and give you money to help. Now, like, my mom was explaining it to me. I don't know all the details, but I live in Canada. I'll say that right now. And so she said something about, like, it just basically tops you up. So if you're making money at a job, it just basically tops you up, and said something about, like, taking part of your earned money or something. I'm not clear on the details. I should research it, but anyways, moving on. So yeah, it's like, it's not, like, me mooching off the government. Like, this is actual need and whatnot. So oh god, train of thought. Oh yeah. So while he's making all sorts of videos about the stigma against physical disabilities, I think I'll do a little bit on, you know, the stigma against mental disabilities or mental illness in general, because it, you know, just because you have a mental illness doesn't mean that it's a disability. I mean, lots of people with mental illnesses, contrary to popular belief, actually, no, it's becoming more popular, especially here in Canada with a lot of our mental health programs. But anyways, that if you have a mental illness, that means that you can't live a functional and productive life. So let's talk about some stigma. Now, I have been diagnosed with 3 different mental illnesses as well as a sleeping disorder. The 3 mental illnesses in order of diagnosis are social anxiety disorder, which I mentioned, as well as ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and thirdly, bipolar disorder, more specifically bipolar 1 rapid cycling. As well as the sleeping disorders, chronic insomnia, like I can't sleep without a ton of medication. So anyways, it even landed me in the hospital once because I went like 5 days straight with no sleep, and before that getting very little sleep. So, and that shit does cause a lot of physical issues and mental issues and whatnot. Moving on. So, as you can imagine, the one that has the most negative stigma is bipolar disorder. So I'm mostly going to address that. So, because anxiety, everyone is somewhat familiar, and ADHD, there's stigma about that, like that it's not a real illness, or that, look, okay, it is overdiagnosed, especially in young boys. I agree with that, but that doesn't make it any less real. Another misconception about the illness is that it's only in children. Now, when it only appears in children, that means that the child isn't actually ADHD. They are just, you know, they just don't fit into the norm. So that doesn't mean that they deserve to be put on all these medications and whatnot, because medications can, if you actually have the illness, medications, you know, because before that I couldn't keep a job, I was failing in school all over the place because I just couldn't pay attention in class, and I was constantly, like, my notebooks had more doodles than notes in it, which actually did help me later because I'm going into art, so, you know, all that practice drawing and whatnot. But yeah, like I was never more than a B student. Besides, like, and I was constantly seeing on my report cards, Catherine is so smart, because I'd always be the one with my hand up in the class to answer the questions, and because I have a thing with fun facts and I just remember things really well. So, like, I remember things I learned in like grade school and no problem. So anyways, so that was always the thing. But then I got put on the medication, and I was able to not only hold down a job, but I was finally able, like, my employers went from putting me on, like, giving me warnings and, like, 3 warnings, 3 strikes, you're fired kind of thing. I was on 2 warnings when I first got put on the medication. And then it was like after 3 months the warnings got voided, and I actually got, you know, like, they were saying, oh wow, you've become like a model employee, and I was managing through my life and everything was a lot better because of it. Because I actually do have the illness. Now moving on to the stigma about, sorry, I'm going to make this little smudge from last night, about bipolar disorder. Let's clear that up. So, a lot of people think that bipolar disorder is multiple personality disorder. This is completely incorrect. It is not a personality disorder, it is a mood disorder. It is called bipolar disorder because you go from one pole to the other. The one pole being depression, and the other, like, from depression to mania. Now, depression is fairly familiar and people understand it, like, and oftentimes with bipolar people, they have a very high risk of suicide, higher risk than people who have been diagnosed with depression, because they are, because the thing is that instead of just having that constant, it's like down into the depression and then back up and whatnot. So, and then the mania, people are like actually a lot of people think it's just really happy, but that's not necessarily true, because while it does have, like the thing is with me, when I'm in a manic episode, I get really excited about things and really animated when I talk, and I'm really hyper and I'm really energetic, and it's not, and that's also when I have these really big bouts of anger and I do really regrettable things, such as damage. Like, I remember when I was a teenager before I was diagnosed, like, my mom's house has several holes in their walls from when I was kicking and punching because I would get so angry. And I would say things I would regret, and I've done some really bad stuff, and, you know, it's really hurt relationships, because I don't just get that happiness. That does happen, and I do get really excited about things, and I also tend to overtalk, and I talk really loud, and I'm really opinionated and very, whatever. Like, you'll notice in my videos, some of them I'm like hyper and almost yelling at the camera, and other ones I'm very calm and relaxed. So I don't really make videos so much in depressive episodes, usually just I tend to make them in manic episodes because that's when I'm angry about issues and want to talk about them. But also I make them during regular states. And there's another misconception. If you have bipolar disorder, you're constantly either in a depressive state or a manic state. There's no in between. This is completely incorrect because you do have normal states. Like, you're not always either manic or depressed. Actually, like I mentioned earlier, rapid cycling is defined as having 4 or more cycles or episode cycles in a year. Now, you might be thinking, oh, well, then they have to last months. Actually, a manic episode is described as manic behavior for a week or more, and depressive is 2 weeks or more, like depressive behavior. So you could have 3 episodes of each, only lasting a couple of weeks, and then that leaves most of the year of you being totally normal. Now, unfortunately, I also have anxiety, which is like a constant, so that doesn't help, but I have less anxiety during mania, because the whole delusions of self-grandeur and kind of self-inflation that comes with mania. So, yeah, so like there's that kind of misconception. Now, I did mention I was rapid cycling, and as time has gone on, oh, by the way, episodes while they can last that short, they can also last for months. That is something that's true. My first major depressive episode lasted just over 5 months. No, it was 6 months. That's right. Anyways, it lasted 6 months, and this was when I was 17. And I ended up gaining 50 pounds within that's why I say 5 months, because after that I stopped gaining weight because I was like, oh, fucking hell, I've gained 50 pounds in 5 months. I used to be very thin, very fit, and everything else, but after that I've struggled with my weight very much, especially because of bipolar. Because in the depression, I binge eat, and in the mania, I either forget to eat, which is really, it wreaks havoc on your metabolism, or I just impulsively eat, so I tend to not take a lot of regard for what kind of things are healthier for me, as well as I don't put enough importance about eating healthy, exercising regularly, and everything else. But at the same time, sometimes I'll lose weight in a manic episode because I have so much energy, so I exercise. Anyways, this video is getting very, very long, but it's discussing a lot of important issues, so yeah, informative. Yes. So yeah, so there's just some anti-stigma stuff. But the thing is too is that when people people have a lot of misconceptions about a lot of mental illnesses. For example, like I mentioned, personality disorders. Now, my mom has a personality disorder, but it's not the way everyone thinks if you have a personality disorder. First of all, while personality disorders have in the past been under the umbrella of schizophrenia, most of the time schizophrenia is characterized by hallucinations, either auditory or visual, but schizophrenia is not the only illness to have hallucinations. Sometimes in bipolar disorder, you can get minor hallucinations during extreme and uncontrolled episodes, as well as if you are a sufferer of insomnia. I've had hallucinations in the past because of that, because if you go long enough without sleep, you start dreaming while you're awake. That's a common thing that you can look at anything. It's like what happens if I don't sleep videos and articles and whatnot online. But anyways, personality disorders does not mean like, oh, we have Fred and Ted in the same body kind of thing, because there are different kinds. There is a personality disorder where like you don't know the other person, basically. There's 2 people in your mind almost. But then there's personality disorder like what my mom has. She has borderline personality disorder, which is kind of weird in its name, but it's basically, it does sometimes feel like there's more than one person. Like sometimes she's super loving and caring and motherly, other times she's, irate and easily angered and everything bothers her, and then other times she's just, like almost like a teenager, like all gossiping and like, oh, I'm such a nerd kind of thing. But the thing is that she's aware and remembers all of her different behaviors. It's just that depending on the day, she'll be acting like kind of a different personality, but it doesn't mean that it's different people or different minds. And through therapy and medication, she has managed to cope with it. Like, I still see that a little bit, but overall, she's changed a lot for the better. Throughout childhood, it did make it difficult because you know, I didn't have the mother I needed because she was dealing with so many issues of her own, but she has since amended for it. But yeah. Oh, another misconception. If you have a mental illness, that means that you had a shitty childhood, or that your parents were on drugs while they were or mom was on drugs when they were pregnant with you, or whatever else. It is a chemical thing, and it is most often a especially with bipolar, it's hereditary. It's not because of, now, that said, shitty childhood, yeah, that will help push along any sort of already problem. But the thing is with me is that I have a really rare iron deficiency, where instead of being, you know, the typical anemia, iron deficiency of the body, it's a chronic and increasingly worse iron deficiency of the brain, which causes brain chemical imbalances, such as not having enough dopamine, making me have ADHD. And actually, because of the lack of dopamine, is why people with ADHD are actually given stimulants, not depressants, as you would think. Also, antidepressants don't make you happy and manic, they actually just make you relaxed. So, fun facts for everybody. Oh, in case you're wondering, I am on medications. I'm on a medication for each of those 4 illnesses. This video is too long, so I'm not going to go listing them. Besides, you don't need to know my medical history.